In this video, we're going to be doing the best bang for your buck upgrade for this budget e-bike. Now this is the TST R002. I have another video on this bike on the channel already, talking about how I think this is the best bargain bike you can get your hands on, with one major flaw: the suspension. Now I will have a link for that video down below if you want to check it out, but the suspension on this thing is not great. The front suspension is spring, but not dampened. It's very, very bouncy, and the rear suspension isn't really suspension. It doesn't really work at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing the rear shock with a coil spring shock with a lighter coil than what's on there. But what's neat about this one also is an air shock, so you can adjust your preload on it, which also adjusts your spring rate, and you can adjust the dampening on the rebound and the compression stroke. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. And I found that one very cheap. We're also going to be replacing the front fork on this thing. Kind of same deal. This is an air fork. It should be a lot lighter, but it also allows you ultimate adjustability because it is air sprung. You can adjust it with a pump. You can also change the dampening on it. Now I will have links for both of these down below so you can check them out. This was kind of the best bargain rear suspension that I could find that had all the features I wanted on it. There is one other thing you're going to need, and that's a pump to adjust this stuff. But we're going to start this by installing the rear shock, because on this bike, I think the rear shock is more important than the front, because the rear shock isn't really doing anything. So let's get started. One thing to note is what I'm doing here applies to this e-bike, but it actually applies to all e-bikes, especially budget e-bikes. So if you don't own this one, all this stuff still applies. Now the first thing you need to do when you're buying a rear shock is figure out how big of a shock you need. Now this one is a 190 millimeter. I already measured this one, but if you are on a different bike, what you're going to do is measure the center of the hardware to the center of the hardware. So here to here. That's the measurement that you need to figure out what length shock you need. Next up is supporting the rear end of the bike. I'm using my bike work stand here, but you don't need something like that. You can kind of rig anything up. I've seen people run pieces of 2x4 underneath it between chairs. You just want to get the rear end supported so when you take the shock out, the whole thing doesn't drop and fall over. Now we can start taking the load off the suspension. Tell you what, it's actually kind of startling how loose this hardware is. So I think what I'm going to be doing when I put this thing back together, even though I see some Loctite on it, I'm going to put some more Loctite on it. As I kind of suspected, I took the spring off and loosened up the tension on it. There is no dampening in this whatsoever. So yeah, even if it did have a proper spring on it, it would have been like riding on a pogo stick. And when you're considering the placement of the spring, what you do need to consider is when you're putting it in, that you want to be able to service this thing. So you're going to have to get to the port right here. That's where you're going to be adding air, and also get to these. So you probably don't want to have this thing spun around like this. It's going to make everything hard to get to. The shock itself came with spacers and hardware, and it looks like we're going to need that. And the way the spacers go in, you put that the sleeve goes through, and then these little plastic spacers go on the outside of each side of that sleeve. Press this pretty hard, and these tend to be going in pretty easy, but in the end it'll look just like that. So we'll come back in. Using the hardware that we already had, you can just thread that guy right back in place. One trick that I've done to make this thing line up a little bit easier, because I keep dropping my hardware, is if you lift the back end up, just take a little bit of tension off, you can then put a piece of hardware or a tool through it on one side to hold it in place while you line everything up on the other side. Then we can tighten everything up. And that's all there is to getting this thing installed. Well, I was definitely right. I took this thing for a spin around the block, ran it off some curbs to see how the thing felt, and night and day difference. So if you don't have enough to do the front and the rear, or you don't want to have to deal with everything that goes into dealing with the front suspension, the rear suspension makes a humongous difference. But now I'm going to dive into the front end here. There's a lot more involved here, but if you take your time and go step by step, it's still not that tough to do. We're going to start by removing the front wheel. The followed by our front brakes. Now here's something to pay attention to. The front brakes on this bike are these kind of side mount style, the way the hardware goes in. The brakes on a lot of mountain bike forks, including the ones that we're replacing this with, are a different style. The mounting bracket mounts straight into it. So you will have to get a different adapter when you install this on the new fork. The good news is that new adapter is only a couple bucks, and I will have a link for that in the description below as well. Now, I will caution you now that you have this thing off of the bike, that you do not pull the brake levers, because if you pull the brake levers, these brake pads will set in, and you will have to pry them back apart to put the brake back on. Not the end of the world, but kind of a pain. Next up, we're going to remove the handlebars. Now, these, again, you have all these cables coming off of them, and you don't want to put a lot of tension on them. So when we remove them, we're going to lay them very carefully on the seat. You may even want to use a bungee cord or something to prevent them from bouncing around on you. Now, something to note is this is essentially what's holding the bars on. The bars now will come off. This fork has a crown up here. It has this top brace. It'll prevent everything from falling off. If you don't have this top piece on here and it's just the fork that mounts at the bottom, at this point the entire fork is loose and it will come off. But that's not what's going to happen here because we've got some more stuff still holding things on. Next up, the headlight's got to go. And our headlight is free. At this point, we can start taking the spacers off, and it's interesting. This top piece, that's why you always check your nuts and bolts, is not even tight. This bike, oh my gosh, dude, I don't know who assembled this thing. This thing must have been assembled on a Friday. And off come our fork. So now I've got the forks in my clamp here, and this part right here, that's the bottom bearing race. That is kind of a press fit piece onto the fork. We do need to get that off the fork and mount it on the new one. So we're going to have to take that off, and we're going to have to take it off as carefully as possible using force. And by that I mean the percussion method. But we're going to go kind of careful because we don't want to bend this thing. Put it in there, we're going to give it some taps. Gradually, hopefully, work this thing loose. And the trick with getting these off is you want to go in a circle, and you only want to hit the bottom of it. There we go. You don't want to pry on the sides because you risk nicking the bearing race and then it's shot. And we got it off without damaging it. Now we got to put it on the new fork. And this is where, honestly, some help would be helpful. So we want to make sure all these cables kind of reroute through. So we're going to feed the fork up through the headset, up through the top. And you might have stuff try to come out, so you want to make sure you hold it all together as you're feeding everything through. And then we've got all the parts that came off the first time, with the last piece being this top portion of the crown. Now I'm just going to give this guy a little tighten up here so it'll hold everything in place. Now in the case of this bike, I could have cut this down and seated that starnet further down in there. However, the way my handlebars mount, it would completely block the top of these and I wouldn't be able to get in there with any air to fill them if I needed to adjust them. So I'm doing a stack of spacers. I have their original spacers and I got a few extra ones, stuff I had lying around the shop here. We're going to put our bars back on here. This little top piece goes back in, and this is actually what's going to tension everything. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put some tension on everything here. With that, I'm going to unhook my headlight because I'm terrified I'm going to break this thing if I keep letting it dangle. Got my headlight out of the way. So now we're actually going to use this piece to tighten everything else up. So we're going to loosen all of these just a tad. Now take this guy and give him a couple good cranks. And you want the bars to still turn freely, but when you hit the forks, you shouldn't hear any rattling or play. All right, so that feels good. Now we can tighten our forks back down to where we needed them. And now we can come in here and refit the front wheel. Now I'm actually putting the front wheel on before I install the brakes because that's going to help me get everything aligned. Remember I mentioned you need an adapter. This is the adapter that you need, and you buy it for the size rotors you have. On this bike, they are 180s, and you're buying these to space your brake caliper off of the fork far enough that it'll actually grab your brake rotor. Next, we're going to take the brake caliper off of the old adapter. And there's a bunch of hardware that you need to make sure stays in order when you take this off, because that hardware is what gives you the adjustability, or actually, well, your adjustability of how they center on your brake rotors. Okay, so we are almost there. What we need to do now is take that front brake and squeeze the brake lever as hard as we can. So we're going to loosen these bolts up right here. Squeeze that front brake, work it around, make sure that thing gets nice and centered. And then we tighten these bolts down, and that'll center our brake pad on the brake rotor. Now on this particular bike, I want you to notice what I did. I actually wound up running the forks up a little bit through here because these forks are a lot taller than the previous ones. But I did let all the air out of these to make sure this still had enough room to compress and the wheel wouldn't hit right here and cause a crash. Speaking of letting the air out, you also got to put air back in. You do need a shock-specific pump for these. These used to be very expensive, now they're relatively cheap, but you do need a shock-specific pump. A regular bike pump is not going to work. This has some special valving in here that prevents it from releasing the air out of the fork when you're doing your thing. All right, so I had to wait for the weather to clear, but I've done a little bit of tweaking on these things, and like I said, these are adjustable shocks, which means you can adjust how much air is in the shock on the front, and you can also adjust the preload and the air in the shock on the back. The perfect formula for me in this bike, I'm 180 pounds, this is the TST R002, is 100 pounds of pressure in the front and 0 pounds of pressure in the back. Seems to be just about perfect. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, you do need a specific shock pump to put air in shocks. There's a couple reasons why, I'll get into it in just a second, but those pumps have come down in price a lot. When I first got my pumps, they were pretty pricey. Now you can get them relatively cheap. Now, the reason you need a specific pump is because, one, you're doing relatively high pressure, but extremely low volume. And part of that is also that when you take the pump off, because it's such low volume, you will let out a lot of the pressure. So you need a specialized pump that can do just that. That's why you need a shock. Now, the other point of adjustability on these is also compression, which makes a big difference. And I've noticed 2 clicks on the front, 2 clicks on the rear seem to be just about perfect. But I'm about to get this thing into some dirt so we can see how well they perform off-road, which is really what I've been kind of going for with this particular setup. All right, so here is some dirt. Let's get into some dirt. All right, so right off the bat, actually this is kind of cheater dirt because this section's not dirt, but those big bumps before were practically unmanageable on the old suspension, and it really, the front end soaked it up. The rear end's still a little bit stiffer than I'd like. I might take a little bit of the preload out of the spring as well. But here's the really rough stuff, and this is, wow, it's almost, the front end's almost still too soft. It's pretty nosedivey when I hit the big bumps. But this is a section of trail here. I didn't even dare go down this before because of how bad it was. And it really actually, wow, is pretty good. This is night and day difference, especially with the big bumps right there. Night and day difference with what this thing feels like compared to what it felt like before. Especially the front. But the rear, if you remember before, had 0 dampening. All right, now the one thing I do want to address with this particular suspension setup is the stock forks on this thing are actually shorter forks than what I put on here. And what that did was it effectively raised the front of the bike up about 1.5 inches, and it also affects the head tube angle. And that does 2 things. The first thing that does is it makes the front of the bike seem a little bit lighter under acceleration than it did before, which I'm not a huge fan of. The other thing it does, though, is it does change the head tube angle, which makes the thing a little bit stabler at speed, which I am a fan of. Now, what I'm probably going to do next is put a shorter set of handlebars on this thing because that will pitch me a little further forward and make the bike feel a little less front light, if that's a way to put it. The other thing I'm probably going to be doing is adding a little bit more pressure into the front forks because these things did feel a little nosedivey when I hit the bigger bumps. Now, I will have links to the front fork and the rear shock in the description below, but make sure you're buying the right stuff for your bike. This tire is a 20-inch by 4-inch tire. That's the fork that I use. They do make similar forks, actually the same fork, for larger tires. So I'll have links to those down below too, but explore around and find out what's best for your bike. Also, don't forget to measure your shock length for that rear shock. If you're interested in the bike that I'm riding right now, this is the TST R002, and I will have a link for this thing down in the description below the video that I made on this, because I think this is the best bang for your buck bargain moped style e-bike you can get your hands on. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button down at the bottom. I really would appreciate it. It'll let you know when I have more stuff like this coming your way. I think I'm required to say hit that thumbs up button because this is YouTube, and that's apparently what we all do. But anyway, happy riding, stay safe, wear a helmet, and thanks for watching.